looking at the needles from last time, and puntying up really works. It gets the initial shape down, so I think we'll punty it. I got to work on the eye of the needle though. I'm not too happy with that, so got to figure that out. But I think we'll be okay. And I'm really happy with the size.
For like opening it or something?
No, like getting the shape and the heat right so it doesn't pull out and slump kind of right there. Why did I choose glass? I grew up in a household of craftsmen. Both my parents are jewelers and bronze casters and ceramicists and stained glass artists. So I grew up with all of these studios around, and you know, no TV, but you could go and make stuff in the studio instead of pay for a babysitter, or instead of pay for a babysitter, or when we're sick staying at home, we had to go with my mom to school where she taught jewelry in two-year colleges down south. So we're surrounded by all these college students making stuff, and as you know, a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, you're in awe. In my undergrad at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, kind of got this kind of what they call it, the glass bug. Got addicted to glass. It's a very seductive material, just the feel of the hot glass and being able to manipulate something so hot and molten. It's very addictive to people who start, so I never quit. This is called the glory hole, and it's a reheating chamber. It's kept at probably 2,300 degrees once it fully gets going. The furnace over here next to it, this one's called a pot furnace, and it has a crucible on the inside that contains the glass, and it contains about 150 pounds of molten glass. And it's kept about 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you can go through, there's a garage and a pipe warmer, also used for containing glass of different sorts. Because this is for two, usually set up for two people blowing at the same time, there's another furnace and glory hole over there that are usually on. But since it's summertime, we're conserving energy and heat. Otherwise it would be sweltering in here. Most everything is made out of metal, like the tools wise that we have to touch the glass with. But these are blocks, and these are usually made out of fruit wood, such as cherry wood, because it's a pretty hard wood. And they usually always stay wet, but it's a tool, we just call them blocks. And it's used for blocking and shaping the glass initially to begin with. And this right here is called marvering, and it's a metal, just a big piece of metal steel or slab of steel called the marver. And it's also used for shaping and cooling. However big you're working, you can't gather all of that glass all at once. It's a layering process before you actually start to blow or shape your glass, whatever you're going to make. You gotta gather it and layer it a couple of different times, depending on how big you want it. And if you gather it when the glass is too hot, it's too floppy. There's no structure to it whatsoever. So you got to let it cool down so it stiffens up a bit, and then you can go gather more glass on it, and it's a little bit more controllable. So that's why it seems like we're not necessarily right now heating it up and cooling it. We're just gathering it, shaping it, and cooling it a few times until we have the size that we want to work with. And then we'll go into the glory hole here, and then we'll be heating it up and working it from there on out. But it's a constant reheating process. What makes glass art? I think historically it's been, it's heading more towards a contemporary art right now. Historically it was considered a craft by the entire world because it was purely functional. Purely functional for a long time, and just historically utilitarian. And in the mid-1900s, so mid-20th century, there was a whole glass movement that started somewhat in America for the most part, becoming a little bit more artistic and creative and not necessarily the same object over and over and over repeatedly. So it became it started becoming known as a little bit more of an art form. And it depends on who you ask too, and depending on who you ask could offend people or give them credit for whatever reasons. But pretty much what makes glass art is if you're making something that hasn't been made before, in my opinion. Something that's your own design and something that's very unique. And there's also a fine line with, so you make your very unique piece and you make it over and over and over because it sells. At what point then does it become kind of this production line, utilitarian or craft or whatever? Like if they're all the same thing, is it really art? So I don't think there's there isn't really an answer to that. And it's something that's debated, and it's been debated for years and years and years. Oh, I wonder if this is going to fit.
We'll find out shortly.
Here, I have it right here. Historically, it has been a craft. It's been a real struggle to kind of get glass known as an art form. It's taken seriously in the art world, in the contemporary world of art as opposed to contemporary world of craft. And then also, is it so bad that it's craft? Is it so bad that it's known as craft? Not necessarily. It's hot.
Depends on who you ask.
Depends on who you ask and what you're doing.